So it's been a month since the last Splatfest, and I've had some time to collect myself since the last video. If you haven't seen my rant on the Mayo vs Ketchup Splatfest, you can catch up by watching it here. I'm sure most of the people who saw that video will never see this one, but the whole thing was all in good fun and not supposed to be taken as seriously as a lot of people took it. That said, I don't take back any of the things I said in that video despite the backlash. I still think it was a terrible theme and it made for a less than perfect playing experience. And I called it all exactly. Ketchup was the runaway popularity winner in both the US and Europe, and it led to nearly 2 out of 3 games being paired up Ketchup v Ketchup, which in turn neutered the team's efficiency in both solos and team battles. This was the same problem that plagued the end of Splatoon 1's life cycle, when the most popular option rarely came out victorious despite constant tweaking to the scoring system. The ink colors were exactly as predicted and looked just as hideous, and to no one's surprise, Mayo came out on top worldwide. It wasn't interesting, it was tedious, and it was predictable. Everything Splatfests were meant to shake up about the usual Splatoon formula. Now, I'm willing to concede that Nintendo made a commendable, if not ultimately foolhardy attempt to launch Splatoon 2 with the second ever worldwide Splatfest. Fittingly, since the final Splatfest of Splatoon 1 was the worldwide Callie Vs Marie. But this only highlights even more how stupid the Battle of the Condiments sounds in comparison. I see now where it was coming from, but I feel like I had the right to be upset about it. I also agree that Europe's North Pole vs South Pole is by far the least interesting Splatfest to date, and my heart goes out to you guys, but in its randomness, ended up being one of the closest matches in Splatoon history, which I think is a lot better than a popularity knockout. Also, what I hadn't noticed, because I couldn't participate in the Ice Cream vs Cake Splatfest, was how Splatfest power and team composition were handled in the game. I truthfully didn't participate in the majority of Splatoon 1's later Splatfests, either due to prior engagements or diminished interest in multiplayer games, but I love the implementation of the power rankings. That way teams are generally tailored to players' skill like they are in ranked modes. And can we talk about this for a sec? Seriously, why not have an option to play Turf War in a similarly ranked environment? I tend to avoid Turf War outside of Splatfest just because of how random the skill levels are. Player levels are an okay first glance at how dedicated a player is, but it doesn't give nearly enough info about actual skill. But anyways, with the stakes of a Splatfest weighing heavily in each match, it's much more enjoyable to know that each match will generally be close and exciting. I think this system is the main reason why, despite huge popularity differences, the last 7 or so recorded Splatfests have been neck and neck in wins. Still doesn't alleviate the mirror matchups, though. The trade-off, however, is something I kinda miss about the original, at least before Splatfest power, and that was carrying over teammates between matches. There was a sense of camaraderie with complete strangers under a team banner. If you were lucky, after a few matches of folks opting in and out based on victories, you could solidify a viable team with 1 or 2 ringers to carry out a consistent win streak. Of course, with players' power levels rising and dropping, it makes sense to randomize all 8 players between matches, but outside the team matches with friends, I would have liked to get to know and depend on the strangers I met in Turf War. That all being said, my takeaway from the last video was that I feared these first 2 Splatfests of Splatoon 2 were setting a disheartening trend, and I was expecting a continuation of lackluster themes, particularly in the US. But I am so glad to say that this weekend's Splatfest may be my favorite theme so far: Flight Vs Invisibility. Here I was thinking the worst, but they turned it around so fast! This is the kind of topic I can really sink my teeth into. This theme lends itself so much better to discussion, arguments, team spirit, and even artistic inspiration. There's no wrong answer. And if I were to put money on it, Marina is on the slightly less popular option. It's everything I fought for in the last video! Back to the good old color scheme, I'm already seeing way better Splatnet artwork, and I'm actually excited to represent my team. For me, I'll be repping Team Invisibility, which I think is such a great counter to Flight in the classic which superpower would you have question, alongside super speed and time stopping, which I think are harder to balance in popularity. And whether you justify the theme to the extreme or the most mundane, I still think it's a fun thought experiment. For example, would you rather fly as fast as a car and up to 1,000 feet in the air, or turn yourself and anything you touch in a 6-foot radius around you invisible? Versus you can only float a few inches off the ground and fly 5 miles per hour, or only turn your body but not clothes invisible. There are a lot of fun angles and stipulations, and each option lends itself better to different demeanors and personalities. I'm a very introverted person who doesn't need to leave my house very often, and as such, invisibility lends itself very well to my day-to-day and also isn't a spectacle I would have to hide from the normies. On the flip side, if I lived in a large populated city and needed to commute to work or didn't mind being a famous flying person, then flight would be an easy choice. while I don't condone spying on others inking their splat zones, I'd be interested to hear your reasoning for your choice, and if you're more excited for this Splatfest than the last one. Hopefully this is a sign from Nintendo of America and Europe that they have big plans for the future of Splatfests, and we should expect more zingers like this in the coming months. And before I sign off, I want to give a hearty thanks to those of you who watched this video, and those who stuck around after the huge success of the worst Splatfest video. I never expected to reach that many views or triple my subscribers, but thank you to those who did. I have something a bit unexpected planned for my next video, and I really hope you'll like it. So until then, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.